session. We're just going to go ahead and jump right in. I am going to ask if you can do me a favor. I know we still have a lot of participants that are joining us, but I just want to get an idea of who we have as a part of our attendee list today. So if you could just put in the chat what your role is and how you support families, that would be great. And I'm going to move right along. And I'm going to also ask you, while you're doing that, if you can think of 3 words that come to mind when you think of family and school together, right? As we start to think about this partnership, what that really means, what does that really look like? What are some words that come to mind? So again, if you can just put that very quickly into the chat, and then I'll talk a little bit about our planned agenda. The answers are coming fast and furious, but I do love the word alignment. I think that was Terry who put that in. That is awesome. Lots of partnership, inclusive, collaboration, support. Wonderful. Relationship. Absolutely. Holistic. I like that. Very nice. Communication, right? That's a big one. Oh, culture. I like that too. Love. Oh, that's awesome, Joyce. Love that. So these are absolutely wonderful descriptions that you all have put into the chat that really help us think about family and school together, right? How we can be partners, how we can really work with our families, how we can encourage our families to support the learning that's happening, not just in what we're doing day to day with our young learners, but again, how we can bridge that to home. And then also really taking into account what families already bring to the table. That's what's really important, right? Really starting to understand what are those family assets, cultural assets that families already possess. What are those things that families can already contribute to that classroom and school environment that really helps us to be able to think about this partnership? Not that we know it all, right? But we really want to see and encourage families and allow them to be their child's first teacher, right? Because they are. And so it's a really important relationship. And so I think you all have, again, hit it right on the head, right? Exactly of how we're able to do this and how we're able to come together. So what we're going to talk about today, and as you know, we don't have a lot of time today within our session, but we are going to talk a little bit about, well, what are those family assets, right, that we're really talking about? How can we help our families really be able to use their expertise as their child's first teacher? And so really thinking about what that looks like in terms of growth and development. We're also going to identify what are those developmentally appropriate expectations for children. And I think that's a really important piece, right? Families come with diverse backgrounds and a diverse set of knowledge, skills, and abilities as well. And so when we start to use this word developmentally appropriate, what does that really mean to a family, right? How does that register with them? So that's an important conversation to have. We're also going to think about how we can explore the impact of family engagement on children's school. And of course, thinking about that, how does that bridge into their home life? We have 2 additional objectives. We won't have enough time for these necessarily, but it is a great piece for you to sort of have as a takeaway. What are some goal and action steps that you can continue to use for engagement, or what are some new things that you can start to add in? And then throughout today's presentation, I'll share some of the videos from our Ready Rosie platform just to give us some of those examples that really highlight and describe exactly what we are talking about. So when we start to think about family assets, right, and protective factors, what we're really thinking about are those strengths, right, that families already have. So if you could take a moment and look at the ones that are highlighted here, and just take a moment just to kind of think about which of these family assets do you really see as a strong relationship that happens with your families and with your children currently. So when we start thinking about that nurturing relationship, is that something that you really see as a very strong asset that a lot of your families possess? When we start thinking about how to establish routines, how do we maintain expectations? And also thinking about how well are families and children adapting to challenges. We know over the past 2 years, there've been a lot of challenges, right, that we've all had to quickly adapt to. So how have you seen your families be able to do that? And then connecting to your community, right? Do you see a strong alignment, a strong partnership between the community and your family members? And then understanding parenting and child development, right? Do your families have a strong sense of what that is, right? When we use that term, developmentally appropriate practices, how does that relate to their parenting skills, right? Are they still in need of a lot of that support? So as you start to, again, just kind of think about these and think about more specifically, where do you see that your families currently, this is a really strong piece for them, right? They really have this piece well developed. So just take a moment, go ahead and type that into the chat box. And you can just select one just for the purpose of time. Although I'm sure there's more than one, but just choose one that kind of stands out for you. Wow. So we do have a lot of nurturing relationships. That's what I saw initially coming through the chat, as well as establishing routines, connecting to your community. These are all wonderful assets that our families are bringing to the table, right? So now it's an opportunity to really think about, well, which are the ones maybe that they're struggling with, right? Where there's some challenges. And then again, how can I use some of the resources and some of the other things that I have in my toolkit to really help families sort of build this capacity to grow and to be stronger in some of those other assets that maybe they haven't really taken time to really analyze, or we haven't really made that very strong connection yet to the community. But I know it's something I really, really want to work on, and it's something I know my families will benefit from. So I think this is a great opportunity, again, to really start to think about, again, how families are already doing this, right? We're starting from that strength-based perspective, but then also thinking about how we can help to build on the capacity to grow in other areas. Thank you so much for all of you who have responded into the chat. So what we're going to look at now, there's a video that I'm going to play, and please let me know if you would like, if we have any participants who speak Spanish and would like to also watch the video in Spanish. I can play it in both. So just put that in the chat for me if you would like. But what we're going to look at is a video around, well, what does it mean to be a child's first teacher, right? What does research say about that? How is that an important piece or aspect to the work that we do?
We always say that parents are our first literacy teachers. In other words, they are the most important teacher to their child. But teaching literacy is not something we are directly ever encouraging parents to do. When we think about literacy, we need to think about literacy very broadly. So when a child is first born and that parent looks at that child's eyes, in my view, that is early literacy. What she's doing is she's connecting and communicating with her child. And that early communication is early literacy development. The child is learning to trust, to care. The child is learning that they're secure and they're loved. And that is a critical factor in children's early literacy development. As a child gets older, there's so many ways that literacy occurs. So in other words, when you're singing and talking and playing with your child, that's literacy. It doesn't involve a book, but it's literacy because it's language and you're communicating to the child in so many different ways. When you take your child to the grocery store and you're talking about different groceries that you need to buy, that is literacy. Children are learning a lot about words. They're learning how day-to-day routines are so critically important. When they write their names or when they're learning who they are and trying to write that and draw that in a paper, that is literacy development. And all of our parents are so capable of making those connections so that children feel loved, feel cared for, and are also ready to be successful learners.
All right. So based on what we just looked at in terms of the family assets and what we just listened to in the video, if you can in the chat indicate where perhaps maybe there is a little bit maybe of a disconnect or a challenge for families in being able to sort of bridge. And a lot of you identify that nurturing relationship. We know that's definitely critical, the most important piece of being able to care for young children. But when we start thinking about some of these developmentally appropriate skills, right? Some of these skills that as teachers, we want children to develop over time, where are their daily learning moments, perhaps in a family's day that you see, maybe there is an opportunity, but they don't always take advantage of it. There's opportunities that they're just not aware of. So what are some of those strategies that you use to help families make that connection? So if you can, go ahead and put that into the chat, and I'll put that question in the chat as well. Wow, see some really great responses, right? Really having families just think about their daily routines, right? A lot of you identified the meal times, bedtime, definitely the time that they spend in a vehicle or however their mode of transportation and what that looks like. I love, running errands, right? These simple day-to-day tasks, these are all learning moments and learning opportunities, but it can be challenging for families to really be able to see how they can stop and maximize that moment, right? How can they really make that connection? And a lot of times for some of our families, they do think that that learning opportunity although we know it does happen in our structured play environment, that's how children learn best. For some families, they may have a different idea of what that developmentally appropriate learning looks like. For some families, that might involve really being able to sit one-on-one with a child and have manipulatives, or have, even for some families, flashcards and worksheets, right? All the things that we know are not developmentally appropriate, but for some families, that might be their idea of what that learning looks like. So it's so great that you all are able to identify, right, these developmentally appropriate opportunities for families and let them know that, yes, this is what learning looks like for our young learners. And it's an opportunity for them to see how just these day-to-day routines and errands that they might be doing, or taking time to go to the grocery store, or just having dinner, or getting ready for bedtime, is that opportunity really to have them focus on some specific skills, whether that's around literacy or mathematics. That's definitely building their social emotional as well as their cognitive development. So what we're going to take a look at now is one of our Ready Rosie videos. So I know a lot of you are familiar with Ready Rosie, and being able to provide families with an opportunity to see what this looks like in practice. So we know oftentimes we provide lots of handouts, and maybe sometimes families, they may be able to read it and comprehend it, and for some other families, maybe not as easily. So it's really nice to have this collection of videos and this catalog of videos that really shows in a home setting, in a grocery store, these real life settings that you all identified in the chat, how families can take that opportunity. So I'm going to play the pre-K video, which is around, the title is Pantry Talk description. Some of you might be familiar with this video already. And then after we watch this, we want to just think about, what do you think that the parent is teaching in this video? So just have that in your mind as you observe, and really be able to identify what are those skills that are actually being taught.
Okay, little buddy, while I load the dishwasher, I want you to play a game with me, okay? We're going to play a game where we describe items out of our pantry, okay? So look, I have 4 items here out of the pantry. I have peanut butter, it's brown, it's smooth, and it's in a jar. I have quinoa, it's hard and crunchy right now, but when you cook it, it gets soft. There's like hundreds of little pieces of quinoa in this green box. And then I have some tomatoes. They are in a metal can, and they are red and soft, and there's juice inside that metal can. And then I have some bread. The bread comes in slices, and it's soft, and it's yummy to eat, and it's white, okay? So listen, we're gonna play a game. I'm going to describe an object to you, and you need to guess what it is. So you're gonna close your eyes. I'm going to describe it, and you guess. Are you ready? Okay. Close your eyes. Okay. There are hundreds of little pieces of this in a green box. They are crunchy, but after I cook them, they are soft. What am I describing?
Quinoa.
That's right, quinoa. Okay, you want to do it? Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, and you describe one of these objects to me. Okay.
In the pantry, soft and smooth.
Okay, it's soft and smooth and out of the pantry. Is that peanut butter? Yes. You want to do another one?
And it's soft in the box. I cooked it in the box. What do you think it is?
Oh, I think it's quinoa.
What? Sweet potato. It's potato. It's soft, and when I cooked it, it was in the can.
Oh, it's soft in a can? Are those tomatoes? Okay, great job, Jaden. You did a good job describing things.
But it's
Hold on,
soft.
when you were younger, you described things by their size and color, but today you use words like metal can and in a jar and smooth. Great job.
I mixed it.
All done.
All right, so if you can just go ahead and add in the chat, what are some other things that the parent is teaching the child through that interaction? Memory, yes. Turn taking, love that. Math, yep. Yeah, definitely active listening, vocabulary, great. Yeah, even some science, description, and memory game. Yes, recalling, describing and recalling information, right? And so, as a family member might not necessarily know, right, all that they're actually teaching their child through this experience, right? So it's our opportunity to really be able to bring that lens and really bring that educator voice to describe all of the actual skills that a child is being exposed to, and giving that parent the opportunity to see that you can take this everyday activity, right, as preparing a meal, and really take that opportunity to help your child develop these skills. And of course, this is obviously something that a teacher could also, and more than likely is doing in their day-to-day routines. And it would be really nice to see a child, I can imagine later on, I could always, envision my own classroom, a child being in dramatic play, and they sort of recreate these things and these opportunities. So it's really nice, even as a teacher, where you can start to observe exactly how children are connecting with those experiences. Great. So the next thing we're going to look at is sort of thinking about, so of course, in an ideal world, right, we want to be able to share these videos with families and really be able to have them take these opportunities and take these moments to encourage their child to learn some of these skills. But we realize that there are a lot of joys, but there's also challenges when it comes to parenting, right? And so sometimes it's not as easy as just watching a video and then having your child do something very similar to what the child in the video has just done. So I know we can all imagine and have had those opportunities where things didn't go according to plan, right? And there were some frustrations, or maybe the child just wasn't into it at the time. So it's always important to think about, well, even though I know this is ultimately where I want my parents to go, I know that there could be some challenges along the way, right? And giving them the opportunity to say, hey, that's okay, and give them some additional strategies to work through that. So when we start thinking about the developmental ages and stages, we're really thinking about what it is that we want children to develop over time in the major areas of development, right? So we're really thinking about that physical development, cognitive and language, as well as social and emotional development. We know that when children develop these skills, and they develop these skills based on those widely held expectations, that children will be more successful when it's time for them to develop in those content areas, right? When they're really starting to pick up those literacy, math, social studies, science, art skills, right? Because they have these major areas of development developed. Or if we start to see that, maybe a child is not actually progressing based on these expectations, what can we do to support them where they actually are? So again, that in turn allows us to think about what's developmentally appropriate for that individual child based on where they are. So we're going to do this activity, and we'll just do it together for the sake of time. So we're going to read each scenario and then think about what's the age range that this would be an appropriate behavior or reaction, right, from a child. So kind of thinking about those joys and challenges. And so a lot of times, even for our teachers, we see certain behaviors, but we have to ask ourselves, is this really an appropriate behavior for a child of this age? So when I think about where they are in terms of their social emotional development, it may be very appropriate for a 2-year-old to experience this behavior or have this reaction versus maybe not as inappropriate for a child who's 5, right? So really starting to help families think about that, yeah, that's an appropriate reaction. So if you share a video and they tell you, Miss Monica, that really did not work well. This is what happened, right? This was that temper tantrum that happened. And based on that child's age and what you know about development, you may say, that actually is an appropriate response for the child. But here's some things that we're going to do to help move that child along that progression. So we'll have to take some more time to get them where they need to be. So we'll look at the first one, the child's grabbing toys and stuffing them into her mouth. We'll think about what age range is appropriate for that. Just put it in the chat. And then what area of development is that primarily? And there could be a secondary, so you can definitely add that as well. Yep, everyone is correct to put that is appropriate for children birth to age 2, right? And then when we think about what area of development is that? Great. I see a lot of you put in physical and cognitive development, right? So children are really starting to connect with the world around them, and that happens through touching and feeling, right? And so this is a very appropriate behavior for a child. So if you're providing something for them to do at home, and maybe it's a material that the parent is encouraging the child not to put in their mouth, but they do it anyway, it's okay, right? This is an expected behavior based on this age range. Of course, that can be frustrating, right, for families and the challenges that they may face. So again, providing them with the appropriate materials for a child to be able to put in their mouth. But this is not a behavior that is not expected or not appropriate. The next one, the child saying, look, I'm writing my name. You can't recognize any of the letters, but there are lots of scribbles on the page. So again, put in the age range and then what area of development. Great. So yes, this is typical of children that are 3 to 5. And we're thinking again about that physical and cognitive development. A lot of times, and I know teachers, you all and myself included, have experienced families that are really, really trying to encourage their children to write and be able to write their name and have it legible, even at sometimes even early as 2, right? 2.5. And we know that that's not an appropriate expectation for a child, right? That they need to practice that fine motor development. So when we give them those activities like stringing beads and practicing just using, tweezers or Play-Doh, right? All those things that we provide as activities to support that fine motor development, that's that appropriate expectation that we need to have, and then share that with families. So even though it can be frustrating, right, and a family may not understand exactly why their child is not necessarily able to write, we know that, again, this is what that stage looks like. And so it's an important piece for us to be able to communicate to families and share with them why we are providing the activities that we are. The next one, the child's getting dressed, but cannot button his shirt, gets frustrated and starts throwing things. Again, what's that age range that we would typically see this behavior, and then what area of development? Good. So a lot of you have 3 to 5. We could also see this possibly children that are about 2.5, right? Those late 2s. And then our physical, right? Because again, that fine motor development, right, is not quite there yet. So a child could be feeling very frustrated by that. And then of course, that emotional piece, right? How do they react to that frustration? And so again, this is an appropriate reaction for a child of this age. And so again, really helping. And this is a great opportunity for families to really start to describe those emotions, talk about those emotions, talk about different ways that we can handle that strong emotion in a different way.
Oh, Monica, I just want to point out that you actually have made yourself mute.
Thank you. Just talking. Thank you so much. I'm not sure what's the last thing you heard, but hopefully it was this example here. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yes. So just talking a little bit about how this is an appropriate reaction, right? Because a child does not have that physical development, and that this is a great opportunity for families and for us to send strategies to really help them talk about emotions, how to handle strong emotions, model that for the future so that families can again use that as a learning opportunity, not to just get overwhelmed and challenged or just, decide that they're going to do it for the child, but this is a learning opportunity. Great. And then the next one, the child is screaming at the grocery store because she can't have a bag of candy. So again, what age range do we see that? And then what area of development? Yep. So again, our 3 to 5 year olds typically, and yes, I think someone did put 6 to 9 years of age. Yes. And then we're thinking about, again, this is how children are going to be able to handle these strong emotions. So again, this is an appropriate reaction for a child who's in this age range. And again, a great model moment, a great learning opportunity for a family member to really be able to take that opportunity, again, to describe those strong emotions to the child. Think about ways to handle that strong emotion. So again, just reminding families that, yep, that's typical, that's normal, that's, a behavior that we want to be able to work through in a developmentally appropriate way. The next one, the child setting the table and counting how many plates will be needed. So for this one, we put 3 to 5. And then again, this is around cognitive and physical, right? So this is a great opportunity, again, to help encourage parents. Again, I think some people put it on there as well, depending on how many plates will be needed, learning to count, right? And then also part of that physical development, if the child's setting the table, right? So giving them the opportunity to carry the plates over to the table as well. 2 siblings are fighting over a toy and screaming, mine, mine, mine. So what age range would we see this as an appropriate behavior, and then what area of development? Yeah, so we have 3 to 5, and of course, possibly our 2s, we would typically see this behavior. And again, that goes back to our social and emotional development. Again, really allowing children to express their strong emotions, right? And we want them to be able to do that. and again, provide them with opportunities to do that in a more appropriate way. So again, just reminding families that, yep, that's a typical behavior. We expect young children, especially in this age range, to do that. And again, here's some things that we're going to do to help that child. So moving forward, when they have that strong emotion, we'll give them some new strategies so that they can handle that differently. The child's at the park and sees other children in the sandbox and wants to play, but is too shy. So where do we, what age range and what area of development? And our age range is actually missing from this slide, but we do have it as 3 to 5. We could possibly see this for children, obviously 6 to 9 years of age, but really starting to think about, again, what's the age range where this is a most appropriate display or most appropriate behavior, and of course that social emotional. So typically during this age range, we are encouraging children to make friends. And again, as we start to see where children have these opportunities and where they're encouraged and supported, that hopefully by that 6 to 9 age range that they would already have this skill developed, but not always, and that's okay, just depending on where that child's individual needs are. But again, more appropriate for 3 to 5. And again, this is why we work on those peer connections and peer relationships during this age range, so that we are able to see children do this successfully later on. Thank you all for participating in this very short activity. And again, this is just a good reminder, which I know a lot of you know this information, but really helping families start to understand some of those challenges that they face are normal. Right? These are the expected behaviors for this age range. And this is why we do a lot of what we're doing in our classrooms, and why we're providing these model moments and these videos to really help them. So again, we know as we observe over time, and if we're doing it in our classrooms and we're providing the support and the families are also doing it, we know that this is only going to help the child become more successful. So when we start to think about these developmental ages and stages, I know a lot of you are already familiar with this information, but it does provide some examples. And this is also part of the family workshop within Ready Rosie that you can provide to your families, so that they do have a very clear understanding of, well, what are some of those things that I could expect to see in that physical development, cognitive, language, as well as social and emotional. And so we have that for children birth to 2 years of age. We also have our 3 to 5 year olds, which is what we're primarily focused on today. And then really starting to think about, again, what those examples are, so that families will have a better idea of what's developmentally appropriate. And then we also have that for our 6 to 9 year olds. So when we think about, and I think you all have done a great job, and of course, I think we've kind of answered this question throughout this session, but when we think about what's family engagement and why does it matter, right? Like, why is this an important topic? Why is this important for us to focus on? And again, it's really going back to, and I love, I think it was Terry who said it in the beginning, that alignment, right? Like, we want to make sure that what the families are bringing to the table, the assets that they already have, the strengths they already have, that we're able just to really build on that and really build on it in a very sensitive way, but then also build on it in a developmentally appropriate way. So we can really understand better those things that are maybe frustrating to the family member, could be frustrating to the child at the moment, right? How do we really make sure that we're doing that in a very positive way? So there's 2 quotes here. I'll just pull both of them up. I won't read them aloud, but I'll give you an opportunity to read them for yourselves, and you can let me know, whether you agree with this. Do you have additional thoughts around this? Yeah, so that's great. I see a lot of you have put in the chat that you agree with this, with these quotes here. Yeah, and oh, that's great, Iris, that you actually have that personal connection, right? And that can be personally true for yourself, or it can be personally true for you as a parent, right? And what you've seen, how that relationship has impacted your own children. So that's great. So last thing we just want to quickly touch on is really thinking about creating a home environment that encourages learning, and then also becoming involved in children's or encouraging families to become involved in their child's education. So giving them the opportunity in this space to maybe share some ideas is always really nice. I've seen lots of teachers do this. So on some of their forms, not just asking, what does your child like? What do they dislike? Do they have a nickname? But also encouraging the family to think about, well, what are some of those things that you really want to help your child with? How do you want to be involved in your child's education? What does that look like for you? And of course, for each family, that's going to look different, just depending on a lot of different circumstances. But it's a great way to start off that communication, so that, again, you're meeting not just the individual child, but you're also meeting those individual family needs as well. So we're going to wrap up by watching this video here that just gives an opportunity for a family member to watch another Ready Rosie modeled moment, and what this might look like in a family setting.
Hear a construction joke?
Yeah, I love jokes.
Sorry, I'm working on it.
And okay, everyone, for family time today, I have the cards that I had everyone make and write 5 things that they love about the family. And so we're going to take turns, and we're going to try to guess who said and wrote what on what card. Okay? Okay. I'll start. Here we go. We always have a lot of fun eating lunch together on Sundays.
Elise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote this one? Okay.
Yeah.
Who guessed it? Who guessed it?
Me.
Okay, so you get to guess.
Oh, let's see. We sometimes have fun waiting movies together. What? Oh, watching movies together.
Watching movies.
Hmm.
I think
Oh, you
Elise
take us
wrote
to
it.
Elise.
So who guessed that right? Did we both guess it right?
Both.
Okay, so we each get 2 points. Okay, we'll let Daddy go.
All
Okay.
right. Start up here. I love my family, especially when we bake together and then eat what we made.
You.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. What, you don't bake with Daddy?
So that one, and again, you can see that that one was done with older children, but you can imagine, obviously, in a family, perhaps there are older siblings along with some of the younger siblings, but a great game, right? Just to share and encourage families to talk about what they like doing together as a family, or what makes them, what makes their family special. So some of the things that you can continue to do and then continue to encourage your families to do are, certain activities, and have them do maybe one Ready Rosie game a week. Also being able to think about how to create an engagement action plan, right? So really going back to sharing and communicating what are some of the things that you're doing in the classroom that's working well, and some of those things that you would also like and encourage the family to do, just like we talked about early on. How can they maximize those everyday moments, right? Those daily moments that they have, and really be able to do that and focus on how to do that in a very developmentally appropriate way. So I do want to leave a few minutes for any questions that you might have. We also have a giveaway. So going to share who the winner is for that. So I'm going to leave that here. So if you have any questions, thoughts, you can go ahead and put that into the chat box and turn it over. Miss Yvonne, I don't know if you want to share who the winner is, or if you've done that already. I think I missed.
No, we haven't yet. So we'll share that person with everyone now. Thank you so much for this information. And that lucky winner is Mary Lee Urick. Mary Lee, are you still with us? Wonderful. Thank you. Congratulations, Mary. Yay.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much to Monica and Teaching Strategies. We love Ready Rosie. Those are all some great tips for all of us to use. Thank you so much. Let's see, Monica, do you have any last words for us before we give out our code word?
No, I just want to again thank you all for allowing me to take some time, share some additional strategies with you all. Thank you so much for your participation. Great job. And thanks again.
Thank you to everyone again. And our code word for this session, and this is for the teaching strategy session, and the code word is teaching. And it's also in the chat. So please do complete our surveys. Thank you again for attending all of our sessions, and especially the sponsorship sessions. Thank you for a wonderful conference day, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.